Well, a panel about the next 10 years, the panel about everything and nothing, I can say. And if we're going to talk about, I'm an economist and I edit an economic newspaper, and I can tell you from experience that predictions do not come true, and we can all refer to a well-known saying. By the way, it's not really clear who said that, whether it's Niels Bohr, the Danish scientist, or Yogi Berra, is that predictions are really hard, especially when they are about the future. So I'd like to call to this next panel. By the way, I hope that in 10 years, hopefully we'll have air conditioning in this room. Maybe. If not, then 20 years maybe. Jonathan Krim, please come forward. He's the technology editor of the Wall Street Journal and Dow Jones. Any place you want, and pick one of the microphone from the thing over there. Johannes Winkelhage, and I'm sorry if I don't say your name right, from Deutsche Telekom. Jim Cunningham, senior director at InfoSpace. Jimmy Maymann, the CEO of the Huffington Post. And Yoram Yaacovi, the general manager, Microsoft Israel R&D Center. So I had the opportunity to interview Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, and he says that in 15 years, basically, we'll be rid of all illness and we'll live till 150 or something like that, and he's preparing for that by living very healthily and taking additives and doing a little bit of exercise. And in 30 years, we'll have little machines, nano-somethings that crawl into our brain, map the brain and the consciousness, and then you can take the whole thing and plug into in the computer, and effectively in 30 years achieve immortality. So that's what Ray says. And then you have economists, which I'm more familiar with, like Robert Gordon, who said that basically all the big innovations in the world have already been done. It's already there. Things like you can only once move from the countryside to the city. You can only once, by the way, again, only invent air conditioning. You can only once invent the car. Sure, it's all going to be a little bit more sophisticated and maybe more effective, but basically we're not going to see anything great. And he predicts that because of that, growth will be very small, and for middle-income people, there's not going to be any growth at all, and all of these problems ahead. I don't know on which of these two sides really we're in right now. What I did see the other day is a research by Gartner. I sent you the link, and we did a little story about this research just this morning. I'm just going to quote a couple of their prediction. They say that the digital revolution will lead to social protest and much more Occupy Wall Street kind of thing. So that's one. They say that the health industry and the fitness industry will push wearable computing. They say that machines will be made such that they won't be able to stop, so we'll let them do their own thing without any control on them. They say that some machines and some software and some technology will basically make a lot of profession that maybe some of us work there completely obsolete. Okay, sophisticated machine will learn more sophisticated things. That's not surprising. They have a lot to say about 3D printing, which will replace many other kinds of industrial process right now. They claim that 75% of data will not be, the governments will not be able to safeguard 75% of the data, so that basically everybody will have access to private data. And what else is interesting? Okay, that the price and worth of data about people will grow, and that actually people will start trading on that, and they will give that away for money. So what I suggest for a first round, please each one of you just present yourselves, say a little something about what you do, and then try to give me your one big bet about what's going to be really, really impressive in the next 10 years. So just start.
All right. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I'm Jim Cunningham. I'm from InfoSpace. We do web search, private label web search, and we have many great partners here in Tel Aviv. I think the next 10 years, it's a really tough question in the sense that we shouldn't be thinking about the next 10 months. If you think about the innovation that has happened, whether it's companies coming out of big data, you know, I know that's a word we all like to use, but I live in Seattle, Washington, and about 2 blocks from my house are 2 companies that didn't exist 3 years ago that are now publicly traded multi-billion-dollar companies. And I would, you know, think that a lot of the ideas, and I've been in the internet space for about 15 years now, worked with Sabir Bhatia, who started Hotmail, and I think it's constantly like the innovations. There are great companies that are going to be ahead of us that will happen. If you think of Twitter, 2006. So I think the best is yet to come. I think there'll be a lot more refinements in technologies. I think the land grab of you know first movers, as they like to call them. But I think that is the power of the internet, is that things can change so rapidly, and you can go from a zero to a hero overnight. And so, you know, I think kind of more of those general terms are things that we look at is, you know, never underestimate innovation, never underestimate the drive of people.
Okay. I'm not sure it worked. Yeah, it actually worked. Well, yes, give it a shot and I don't know, maybe try to be more specific. Give us the one thing that you think is going to blow our mind.
Yeah. This is Johannes Winkelhage working for Deutsche Telekom, and as a network operator we are more or less used to think in terms like 10 years or 20 years, so it's not that strange for me. I have been a journalist working on technology topics like you do for 13 years for a big German newspaper, and I changed after I got more or less bored about that and do some real thing working for Deutsche Telekom in the CEO's office, and working with the CEO on strategic projects and on the strategy for the next 10 or 15 years. And what we see is that, you mentioned it, that our innovation cycles are completely disrupted from software. So we're used to thinking about 10 or 20 years cycles, and now we have to think about 10 or 20 month cycles, and everything is changing quite rapidly. One thing which is lying on the base and which does not change or has not changed yet that much is connectivity. So I would like to talk about connectivity and how this will change in the next years. And I think we're going to see a completely new understanding of connectivity. I would like to have you here in 10 years sitting over there and not even thinking about how I'm connected, not thinking about technology. So, and this will be one of the boosters from our point of view to make all these things, all these startup ideas happen in the next 10 years. And I promise that we will work very hard on that, and we're going to invest billions to make it happen. And this is one of the things I would like to talk about.
Okay, Jimmy.
I'm Jonathan Krim. Does this work? Jonathan Krim with the Wall Street Journal. I think there's going to be tremendous advance in artificial intelligence in the next 10 years. We're actually in the very early stages of natural language processing. Search is actually fairly unsophisticated, and Ray Kurzweil of all people would tell you that, and he's the guy at Google that's working on this problem. I don't think he's right about living to be 150, but I do think he's right about this. I'll mention one other thing that I think is going to be a very big development. It's not a particular product, but I think people in the next 10 years are going to begin to recognize and come to grips with what privacy really means and whether they have control of their information or not. And it's going to be very interesting to see whether they choose to actually take control of their information or whether they can no longer do so even if they want to.
Jimmy Maymann from Huffington Post. I think talking about artificial intelligence, just last week I spent time seeing a presentation on artificial intelligence, and it was actually, I was blown away to see at this point in time what we're capable of doing, and they expect within the next 4 or 5 years that we can actually start to treat serious illnesses, using artificial intelligence, uncovering and doing things that we with our human minds are not capable of doing. They showed quite interesting examples of gaming, where the machine was able to pretty fast to outsmart the game, and that's the kind of things they wanted to apply to medicine. So I think that's one of the things that's interesting. I think also it's interesting to talk about where innovation is going to come from, because I think for a long time we've seen the US and in particular the Valley as the place for innovation. I think over the next 10 years, we're going to see a shift. We're going to see a shift towards Asia, is what I believe. I believe, already now what we are seeing coming out of China, India, those kind of places, and since it's going to shift over there, they're much more mobile savvy. They kind of jumped the desktop thing. So mobile is obviously going to play a huge role over the next 10 years. Everything from much more sophisticated location-based services to the way we use mobiles to pay things as an intelligent device.
Right, Yoram.
I'm Yoram. I run the Microsoft R&D Center in Israel, where we hopefully build some of the technologies you will use in the next 10 years. I actually have a prediction first for the Israelis in the crowd. How many Israelis do we have here? Quite a few. So I predict that within the next 10 years, we'll figure out how to handle daylight savings time in our phone and computers. And if the non-Israelis folks do not understand why I said that, please, the Israelis, explain to them why I said that. Specifically, more seriously, and maybe it's not going to sound very serious when I say it, I'm usually the more optimistic part of the bunch when I'm with other people. And I think that within the next 10 years, we will actually be able to tell the future. We'll be able to be future tellers. And before you think I watch too much Tolkien or Game of Thrones and stuff like that, I'm going to give you some examples. I mean, we collect tons of data, not just Microsoft or Google or Yahoo. Everyone collects tons of data. Each of you collects tons of data all the time. And the more data we have, the more we can look back at the data, look for pattern matching, use data analytics and data technologies to deduct how the future is going to look like, and to look at the past and deduct from the past to the future. And we can do that more and better with more data. I'm going to give you one example, and then we can move on. One of the things we do, specifically in virus detection in computers, it used to be that when a virus hit your machine, the antivirus software was able to detect the virus, remove it. Usually too late, after the virus already made its impact on the machine or stall or whatever it did. Today, using data analytics, using tons amount of data we collect from billion computers around the world, we can actually tell you that the virus is going to hit your machine in the future. We can tell you that within 2 weeks, a specific virus is going to hit your machine. And then we can actually block it from even getting to the machine because we know what's going to happen in the future. And that's future telling. Maybe it's not, Gandalf or the Lord of Light future telling, but it is future telling, and I believe we'll be able to do more and more of that in the future.
Will you be able to tell me which stocks are going to go up?
Possibly, or at least, I don't think we're going to be right 100% of the cases. I think we'll have a better chance than the random selection of stocks by looking at past behavior.
I have a bet on that. People that are selling air conditioning in Tel Aviv will definitely have a future.
Yeah.
It's very hot here.
Yeah, by the way, if you know that you're going to be hit by the virus, then you're going to treat it beforehand, and you're not going to be hit by the virus. So what does that mean? It becomes very strange by then, if you can predict the future. But I'd like to stay a few more seconds with technology. I'm not a technology person myself, but the cloud, big data, where does it end? What does it mean at the end of the day when everything is recorded and everything is crunched? Where does it actually take? Do you guys in your companies have any thinking about future products, about a future system, how they're going to look like? Would anybody want to take that?
I can start with it. It's a little bit like that's what you said, looking in the future. It's a little bit like what we know from the Minority Report, for example, to have at least the near future a little bit more closer to us. But what I guess is that if we start combining all the data currently collected in corporate silos, every company has their own data silo. If we start combining these data and building different levels and then start asking the right questions to this huge database, I think it will be a complete new definition of that what we have called recommendation until now. So it's not only about telling the future, it's about giving me hints, giving me advices, and for example, it's a kind of a sensor system. It's maybe one of the biggest questions was how to predict earthquakes. Maybe if we can start working with these systems, really able to work with these huge data masses, that's your turf, I guess, it becomes quite interesting.